So good morning, everybody. I'm just heating up eggnog, which I found at Kroger. And so I've just got it in a pot. I'm going to heat it up, put it in the glass, and it's starting to boil already. And I've got cereal and milk, and then I've got a new Elle magazine, and on the cover is Kamala. Let me show you. Why Kamala Matters. Kamala Harris on the power of optimism. So I'll read you that. This is just about the breakfast. It's just about done. One day before Election Day. So I think I'm going to add this here. I'm sure it's... Nope, not hot. It looks like it's boiling, but it's not. I'm going to stir it. Haven't had eggnog since last year. I found it at Kroger. Maybe a little early, but who cares? In this kind of crazy world we're in these days. I just heard about the big storms in the Philippines and all of that this morning. So we're lucky to be where we are. There you go. So I'm waiting for this to heat up is all. It's getting there. I could have put it in the microwave. I don't know why I'm heating it on the stove, but it just seems right to do. Oh, it's hot. So I'm going to take that out. Add it to my glass here. I love eggnog. I'm going to put that in so it's easier to clean. There we go, something nice and warm to drink first thing in the morning. And it's, colder and colder every day. So I'm going to put this over here. Could almost have warmed up the milk in this. I'm going to read to you from this article on a brand new magazine. Just in time for the election, women in politics. They have a whole article, too, about Republican women. So they're not being one-sided. I'm going to have to let this cool off now a little bit, which would be a perfect time to read to you. Why Kamala Matters, the woman who could be vice president on the fight for justice and freedom she's been waging since birth. I read this very first part. It's a cute story. Kamala Harris started her life work young. She laughs from her gut the way you would with family as she remembers being wheeled through Oakland, California. Civil Rights March in a stroller with no straps with her parents and her uncle. At some point, she fell from the stroller. Few safety regulations existed for children's equipment back then, and the adults caught up in the rapture of protest just kept on marching. By the time they noticed little Kamala was gone and doubled back, she was understandably upset. My mother tells a story about how I'm fussing. Harris says, and she's like, baby, what do you want? What do you need? And I just looked at her and I said, freedom, freedom. This past August, that same precocious child, now a member of the U.S. Senate, stood on stage in a nearly empty auditorium flanked by American flags and accepted the Democratic nomination for vice president. making history as the first Black and Indian American woman to do so. A week later, flanked by those same flags, she delivered a speech designed to deflect attention from President Donald Trump's own speech later that night at the Republican National Convention. The big headline here is, "It is so critically important in our country," a quote from her, "for all people to be seen in their full selves in a way that gives them the dignity they deserve." Justice, she said, forcefully boring into the eyes of viewers as she defended the right of peaceful protesters to take to the streets after the recent shooting of Jacob Blake by a police officer in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Let's talk about that, because the reality is that the life of a Black person in America has never been treated as fully human, and we have yet to fulfill that promise of equal justice under law. Rewatching that speech, as I prepared for this interview, I wondered if her words would be enough to inspire hope in those who need it most. Depending on who you ask, hope is either the territory of the naive or the antidote to our shared pain. But for the last 4 years, hope has become increasingly elusive for the most vulnerable people in this country. So, as the senator and I log into our Zoom call, I have a lot of questions and a few trust issues. I don't sugarcoat my words. I start by asking what many of us would like to know. How can people who have only known the underside of this country's boot trust her, another politician, to do the right thing? How will the people with the least visibility know that she sees them? Harris leans toward the screen and tells me about her favorite way to greet people, learned from various cultures in Africa. When you are introduced for the first time, the greeting is not "pleased to meet you," the greeting is "I see you." I see you as a complete human being. At this moment in time, it is critically important in our country for all people to be seen in their full selves in a way that gives them the dignity they deserve. Here's the picture on the other side. Did I show you this? Justice is not about benevolence or charity. It's about every human being's God-given right. Beautiful picture, right? The woman who could be vice president. It says Senator and Democratic vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris, photographed in Washington on September 9th. Great picture. I came to Washington, to D.C. for orientation in November 2016, and then there was the inauguration. The next day there was the Women's March. Where I spoke, and then I got on these committees, and then all these confirmation hearings for people like General John F. Kelly. Then right after that came the Muslim ban. The travel restrictions implemented by the Trump administration left families and visitors confused, trapped in airports, and unsure of the status of marriages and adoptions. It was chaotic as we all watched it play out. On various screens, Senator Harris was sitting in a D.C. apartment filled with unpacked moving boxes, fielding calls from civil rights lawyers she'd worked with over the years. they told her clients detained by ICE officials and how they were unable to get information in or out. She pantomimes the flurry of calls. Pamela, they're not letting us talk to our clients. This would not do. I'm used to being in the executive branch and getting things done, Harris says of her time as Attorney General in California, and not having to ask permission. In fact, that's why I've run for most offices I have run for, because I'm not so good sometimes at asking for permission. She was new to the Senate, but being new hadn't ever stopped her from getting things done before. Somehow she found the home telephone number of General Kelly, who at the time was Secretary of Homeland Security, and called him up. First thing he says to me, "How did you get my number? Why are you calling me at home?" The look she gives me, raised eyebrows and slightly curled lip, indicate that his greeting also would not do. She says she told him she was calling because I'm a U.S. Senator who represents 1 out of 11 Americans, and you right now have a situation that you need to explain to me about why your people aren't letting them see their lawyers. With political corruption and police brutality top of mind today, it can be hard to believe there's a powerful defender ready to battle for all this country's people at once. None of us can tell the future, so we look for clues and try to pose the right questions. I ask what justice means to a prosecutor who wants to defend our civil rights. The senator says smiling is about freedom, it's about equality, it's about dignity. When you achieve equality and freedom and fairness, it's not because I grant it to you, it's because you fought for it, because it's your right. This is not about benevolence or charity. It's about every human being's God-given right. What do we collectively do to fight for that? That's what justice represents to me, and it's about empowerment of the people. I'm going to skip forward here. What did that whole characterization of a poor black woman and calling them welfare queens do to public programs that were about to become feeding hungry children, all hungry children, regardless of the race? I push back on this. I'm trying some of that eggnog. I got it so hot I have to wait. There was a time when I would have agreed with her, but now I'm skeptical. I've seen people at anti-masks protests fighting for their right to die via COVID-19. That's the craziest thing I ever heard. I don't know if those people care about suffering from the byproducts of racism. I ask if she really believes that white people understanding how racism hurts them might change some of their minds. She looks sad for a moment and says, I do, but it's not the only way, right? I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels like hope is in high demand and low supply these days, but we're all still searching. Every day there's a few fresh news story hammering home the notion that nobody is actually in charge, that the most marginalized among us are on their own. Even the superheroes from the movies are dying. But what if the people don't need saviors? What if children don't need heroes? What if all that's needed are more fighters for the truth, more people who work to maintain actual human rights and who are ready to defend our dignity at the highest level of government we have. For many, Senator Harris is the role of vice president. In the role of vice president is the right step forward, but we will have many more steps to take. She may be the right way to go, but there's always more than one way to save the world. That's what gives the senator hope. We'll go down to the end here. She relays a story about the night she became the second black woman in history elected to the U.S. Senate. In every one of my elections, part of the routine is we do a small friends and family dinner before we go to the campaign night celebration. She explains that it was looking like the election was going to be called for Donald Trump. My godson Alexander, who was 7 years old at the time, came up to me crying and said, "Auntie Kamala, they're not going to let that man win, are they? And you know the babies in your life?" She closed her eyes and swallowed. I held him. I mean, it still brings me pain to remember how he felt and what it made me feel, which is that I needed to protect this child. In one day, in my mind, I thought the evening would go, and then there was the way it turned out. And so by the time I took the stage, I had ripped up my notes, and all I had was Alexander in my heart. And I took the podium and I said, I intend to fight. I intend to fight. If there's anything we can know about Senator Kamala Harris, it's that when it comes to freedom, she will fight. It's a sad story. I remember feeling exactly the same way after the election. You were just like stupefied. I was. I went to bed and cried. So I'm going to go now and pick up some eggnog. I got a bruise from somebody accidentally hitting my hand, so. And eggnog is really good. Try some of that in the morning. It'll really give you the right start. So see you later. And this is Why Kamala Matters, and it's in the new issue of Elle magazine with a big picture of her on the cover, if you're looking for the magazine. It could be very collectible. Bye.